Hello and welcome to What's Happening, a show where we discuss EV news around the world with Omkar and Manish. So, Manish, the month of Jan, New Year has started.
Yep.
How does it feel like?
Feels good. A lot of exciting things, I guess, are planned from the manufacturers for the year of 2025. And, so New Year, a lot of talk, excitement in India. And I guess you visited the Bharat Mobility Expo and saw there's a lot of things happening there.
Yeah, so I think the year was started with a bang. The Bharat Mobility was just rightly placed, right in January. And I traveled all the way over there in the winters of Delhi. And honestly, it was a breathtaking experience to kind of see firsthand the amount of innovation that is happening in the Indian space, both from the Indian OEMs as well as a lot of foreign OEMs that are coming to India to capture the bigger market. But if we sort of talk about all the things that happen in Bharat Mobility, then this will be a 3-hour podcast. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna distill everything down into our top fives
Sounds good.
that we see, and we'll sort of get it going on that. So of course, one of the main highlights of Bharat Mobility, which was very much anticipated, was from the big daddy of the Indian automotives, which was Maruti. When I went to Maruti, I think I was going with a very clear sort of goal that I want to experience everything that they have and go in really detail of how they sort of came about for the E-Vitara. I think 1 or 2 weeks before the Bharat Mobility, they put out a teaser, or they put out a small snippet of how the vehicle is going to be like. And but this was the first time for all of the people to sort of come about and see the entire range of things that Maruti has put up, where it's not just the vehicle, but there are so many things that in back end that they have done to sort of make this vehicle come to life. So the first impressions, as soon as you enter the Maruti's booth, was they have this very beautiful architecture, of the vehicle, which is I think called as hard tech. Something about that. We'll correct it if I'm wrong. But they had this beautiful architecture that they have sort of built, which is going to be their own platform for now for all the vehicles. And on the same platform, they're going to build multiple vehicles, along the line. I think by 2028, they are planning to have 6 vehicles on this particular platform. But what about you? What was your initial impressions of the E-Vitara?
Well, of course, you went there. You got to see it in person, and I saw it remotely. I didn't get to go this year to the expo, but like you said, it was highly anticipated because everyone, like for the last couple of years, like they're finally going to launch. They're finally going to launch. So they finally did launch, and it does look very nice. So they are using cells LFP from BYD. So they're like everyone else using BYD batteries, which is the heart of EVs. But it looks really nice, and more importantly, I think everyone is striving towards like that 500-kilometer range. I think that's the spec everyone's going towards. I think to kind of get rid of that idea of range anxiety. And so they've done it. Price point, I don't think any of the manufacturers that we talk about today, I don't think anyone has really mentioned pricing. I think they're all doing that staggered approach where they launch the car, then they'll a little bit later talk about the pricing, then a little bit later they'll talk about the release dates. So, but the rumor is this will be around 17 to 18 lakhs starting price for the E-Vitara, which of course puts it in the Creta killer space, which of course we will get to because Creta also launched finally their electric version as well. But it looked really nice. They've got 2 battery packs. One is a 49 kilowatt hour, and the other one is a 61 kilowatt hour battery pack. But I think it'll do well because it is from the house of Maruti, and they've got obviously dealerships all across the country. They said that they're going to have charging stations every so often, so they're building it out the network of charging stations. And I feel we talked about it is because their Japanese partner Suzuki is really focusing on this market because if you look at it, Suzuki really isn't doing much in any other market but India. So I think they're really pushing Maruti to say, hey, let's do this together, let's build it out, and then this could be a launch pad for Suzuki to take this platform to other countries as well.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting caveat in this is, of course, one part of the cells or the batteries are procured from BYD, but there is a certain lot which is also that they've done with the Tata and Goshen, combined tech that they're using for the batteries that are going to be in some of the E-Vitara. So I assume it might be in the difference that between the 49 kilowatt hour and the 61 kilowatt hour that they have. But as you said, I experienced the vehicle firsthand. I went and sat in the vehicle, and sort of as a typical Maruti, you would expect maybe not the best build quality, because their motives or their like key features are different much more than what the other OEMs go for. But this vehicle, I think, in my opinion, was the best vehicle that Maruti has ever made, purely from a standpoint of build quality. I mean, if you see the finish that is there for the product, the interiors that are there for the product, the well thought out ergonomics that they have built in terms of the seat, as well as the where the cup holders are, where how the sort of layout is sort of built, as well as they got the new doors on the back, which is on the window where you have the window doors. So it was one of those. I think the ground clearance also seems really really well. So they know the Indian market in and out, and I truly see this vehicle being very different from the normal Vitara that was there. It was not just a slap a powertrain and get the vehicle out. It was not that approach. I think they have sort of built a lot of things from ground up, and does look very very well. So if you see on the Maruti booth, there was a very clear message from Maruti. There were 7 E-Vitaras out there. There was no single ICE vehicle. It was just one WagonR, which was on the flex fuel. I think that is one sort of thing that all manufacturers are trying to do. And there was this one drone company that Maruti and that drone company are working together for aviation, all of that stuff. So it was just one of these things, but entire booth was just filled with E-Vitara. So a very clear message from Maruti. They're trying to push this through the Nexa route, which seems the logical choice, but they also have sort of launched a new brand under Nexa, I think, which is for the E. I mean, that is their messaging that is coming about, with the E for electrification, E for excitement, and all of that stuff. But along with this, I mean, as you mentioned, the charging infrastructure, right? They're going to go really big on having the chargers on all the dealerships. These are going to be standard 60 upgradable to 120 kilowatt chargers. Again, the 7.4 kilowatt chargers, again, those are also standardized for them. So I know it is very given that once Maruti enters one particular space, they want to dominate it. And this was a clear message from that. Even from a point of view of service, I think a lot of OEMs have been guilty of just putting the vehicle out and thinking about service later, but they have gone ahead and spoke a lot about the servicing for these vehicles as well. They have launched a new Nexa service vehicle, which is maybe like a ute, like a tempo, and then on that they have all the power tools for to be able to service. So they're starting the doorstep service kind of a thing, again, which will have its own battery pack in that vehicle, which will power all of the power tools. They can do wheel balancing, they can do all kinds of stuff.
Oh, that's great to hear.
So they really have thought through a lot of these things, and very excited to finally see when the product actually launches and comes out in the market, to see how the market responds to this.
That's good.
Yeah. So any closing comments on Maruti?
No, I think I'm actually waiting to see the car, and especially after your glowing review and saying it's the best Model 3 you've ever seen, which is great. And you said, the build, the quality, the fit, finish, all of that. So I think, it's very similar to when I hear people talk about BYD. When you look at those cars 10 years ago, they were like the laughing stock. And in fact, there's a clip of Elon Musk laughing about BYDs 10 years ago. And today, if you sit in a BYD Seal or C-Line, it's just, you can't even compare, because you're like, what am I sitting in? Because it almost feels like you're sitting in a German car.
Exactly. And I mean, since Maruti and Toyota has a good sort of association going on, the same E-Vitara is also going to be launched by Toyota as the urban cruiser concept. I'm a bit sort of worried from standpoint that there's just so much Maruti has done apart from the vehicle. So how Toyota is going to go about that, I think that is something for us to sort of see in the future. But just a couple of weeks before, when everybody was trying to put out the teasers, Hyundai actually went ahead and launched their Creta EV amongst all of the buzz that was around. If I just take a step back and look at the timing for Creta, I think if I was one of the execs for Hyundai, I would be very very scared, because they were, I think, kind of sandwiched between after the launch of the B6 and the XCV9 and just before E-Vitara was launched. So it was kind of sandwich. Maybe from a consumer standpoint, they did not get the hype up as it was required. Everybody was anticipating the Creta EV, but once it was launched and once we saw the specs, I mean, you would kind of sort of feel, okay, maybe this was, if the Mahindra was not there, it would have had a very big impact.
Big impact, yeah, of
But
course.
what do you think about the Creta?
Well, I mean, the Creta killer is supposedly the Creta electric. So let's see if it actually is. But like you said, the buzz I think was kind of diminished because when you look at what Mahindra released, it's like unbelievable. So I think the good thing about the Creta at least is they say 92% localization. So the battery packs are actually assembled in India, which is great. So so the whole idea of the government's policy of local manufacturing is kind of playing out. You can see that with Hyundai. So that's a good thing. This also has two battery pack options, 42 and 51.4 kilowatt hours. Again, they're, like I said, the claimed range is 473, so everyone's trying to shoot for that 500 kilometer range. But I think what Creta has done with this electric is make it look like a regular Creta. That's the thing. So it's not, as we now here in India call these, born electric. It's not a born electric. It's built on the traditional ICE Creta platform, but they've done a very good job in making it kind of fit in and not look too crazy. Because if you look at it, Hyundai's already got the Ioniq 5. They've got the Hyundai Kona, so those are very cutting edge designs. So this one is sort of like, I think, very similar to like the E-Vitara, something that is in that segment, but it's not completely crazy looking, or kind of, it's very more conservative. And I think that's what they've done with this. And I guess we'll have to see if the numbers kind of speak for it. Again, they did not release the pricing, but they said maybe starting around 17 lakhs. Yeah. So let's see.
But moving on, I think one car that we were very excited about was the Macan EV, and finally we got to saw it in flesh out there. Porsche had, honestly, if you just look at it from a pure consumer experience standpoint, I think Porsche did really great job at Bharat Mobility, making it sort of accessible to a lot of people here. And if you look at just their booth, it was really, really good. They had a lot of cool vehicles around there, and purely from an experience standpoint, they had like an experience zone build out where people could take a test drive of the Taycan and the Macan EV. They had built a very nice sort of a circuit, like a small track kind of a thing, very similar to what you would see in like a Los Angeles Superbike circuit. It's very similar to that, to test the handling of how the vehicle is. But I'm sure you're a very big Porsche fan, so what do you think of the Macan?
Well, yeah, I mean, the first thing I saw in that booth, when I saw it online, was, of course, they had a 992 GT3 RS, looked really nice. But yeah, the star, I think, of that entire booth from an EV perspective was the Macan EV, because it's been so highly anticipated. It's now finally shipping in other markets. And I think there was an issue with, their software stack within the Volkswagen group, hence Porsche. So that's the reason why it got delayed. But when you look at the specs of, the Macan EV, from 0 to 100 in 3.3 seconds, which is great. So from straight line performance is great ride height, which is what you need in India. And like you mentioned, they had a little kind of like a test track there to kind of talk about the handling. And that's one of the big things I see with Porsche, is always talking about the handling, because if you're going to compare a Porsche versus, let's say, a Tesla in the straight line, they're never going to win, because, Tesla just nails it, So they've got to do other things. So that's the handling thing. But going back to the Macan EV in India, I think it'll do decently well in numbers, because if you look at, let's talk about like high-end SUVs. The Lamborghini Urus has done very well for the Lamborghini group. The Huracans are okay. Aventadors and the new Revuelto is doing okay, but the Urus is doing really well because SUVs sell really good across the world, and especially more so in India. So, Urus is doing well. The Ferrari Purosangue is doing really well. All the allocations booked out. So I think in this case, Cayenne is doing well. But if you want an EV that is really high performance, this is the one to get.
Exactly,
and
yeah.
I think they'll do really well. The only thing is, I think it's a little bit small, compared to, of course, it's the baby version of, the Cayenne. But I think from everything else, as stats wise, looks really nice.
What do you think about what is the estimated pricing that they're going to come out with?
So they haven't said, but I personally feel it'll be around 1.1, 1.2 crore.
That's scary territory,
That
because
is.
that'll be directly competing with the Mercedes EQB and all of these. And just from pure spec perspective, the Macan EV just kills everybody in that.
Exactly.
If even that, like 1.1 crore, it seems very a lot.
It does.
But just from a pure spec perspective on other vehicles, other EVs that are there in that range, it really would kill.
Exactly.
Do really, really well.
So let's see.
So then from Porsche, I think we'll jump to BYD. So BYD, of course, very big anticipated sort of a thing, brand to look out for in the Bharat Mobility, of course, because they've done quite well. If you look at it from the past 3-4 years, they've slowly sort of grown their market share here in India, both with the C3 and sorry, E6, right? I forgot the vehicle. The
Yeah,
M,
E6, and then it became rebadged to the E-Max 7, the
yeah,
new
yeah,
version of it. But they initially launched with the E6, which was their minivan MPV.
yeah. So after the Emax, then they've done with the BYD Seal, and they've subsequently launched a lot of these products, very high quality products here in India. So at Bharat Mobility, we really wanted to see what's the best that they can pull out, and the Sealand was the vehicle, and it does look so bloody good.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think of the vehicle?
I mean, I've sat in the Seal and I still can't get over how amazing that car is, from the build quality, the seats, everything. It's amazing. So the C line is basically the SUV version of the Seal. And this is their fourth car coming in. So as you mentioned, there's the E-Max 7, which was refreshed about 6 months ago. Then they've got the Atto 3, which is their smaller SUV. Then they came out the Seal, and now the C line is their bigger version of the SUV. So it looks really good. And the expected price is around 45 to 50 lakhs. If it comes in at that price range, it'll do fantastically well. But again, I think it looks great ride height, all of that, which is what you need in India. But I think it'll fly off the shelf. BYD has done an amazing job, and I think they're focusing on all the markets outside the US because that's the one market that they're probably never going to go to. And it's so great because everyone in the US is complaining, saying, oh my God, I heard these BYD Chinese cars are amazing. And guess what? We have access to them here in India. People can drive them, can buy them, all of that. And they are great. I mean, a lot of other issues around, the technology, your data, where's it going? But I think the car looked really good.
I'm just purely from a tech standpoint. I think one of the properly specced out car, especially in that price point that we have here in India. And BYD as a brand itself is growing quite a lot. If you look at it, the number of dealerships are just growing month on month, and I'm really excited for the brand to sort of come out. I think it just requires them to sort of maybe understand a bit more about the Indian consumer, like the mass Indian consumer, for them to actually be one of the best selling products out here, because they clearly have the product range, if you look at it from an international perspective, that they can bring in here in India and really go like ham. Which in a way, if I was a Tata or a Mahindra or a Hyundai, that's one brand I would be scared of,
Very
because
much.
they have the technology. They're already supplying to a lot of these OEMs, at least from a battery perspective. And they do have vehicles. Like every time you open BYD's Twitter or Instagram, you would see some out of the world crazy feature that they were trying to sort of showcase. And one of the most funny things I saw recently was them jumping over like a pit in the vehicle, in the BYD
pothole.
vehicle.
Yeah,
And I was like, come on, that's I don't think that was ever possible. It was something that in the 1960s a James Bond vehicle would do. So I mean, yeah, that's the brand to sort of look out for. And then I think we'll talk about MG. I think that was also one of the MG had a very big booth. I remember the last year I went to the MG booth. They always try to make it as a very sort of cultural kind of an experience, coming from their British heritage, and they try to put a lot of those things. But very interesting vehicles were here for MG this year. I think one vehicle I was really looking forward to sort of see was the Cyberster. And it does looks just so good. I really can't wait to drive that vehicle. But you have sat in the vehicle, I think.
So
right?
I sat in the vehicle about a year ago. They did a focus group. So I had access to the vehicle, spent probably a good 1 hour in the vehicle, got to see everything, everything outside of driving the car, but I was able to, sit in it, and definitely, again, the fit finish, it felt, the minute they unveiled it. So I was part of a group where they kind of covered all the badges, but the minute I saw it, I was like, I knew what the car was. But the thing is, I think most people, if you cover the badges, they wouldn't know. They would think that they're sitting in an Italian car because it had that Italian look when you sit in the inside of it. But looked really good. And I was expecting the pricing to be around 50, 60 lakhs when I looked at it a year ago. People are saying now that it may be coming in at 80, 90 lakhs. I still think it'll do really well, fantastically well. And I think it'll be the halo car for the MG group. Again, they're also doing the same thing as a Nexa. They're going to have what they call MG Select. So this is going to be sold through the select dealers. I think it's got a 77 kilowatt hour battery pack. Some crazy stats. I think 0 to 100. They didn't talk. I don't think they've officially announced it, but it's probably under 4 seconds.
Exactly,
So-
but it has 725 Newton meters of torque, which is just mind blowing, mind bending, honestly. And I mean, that kind of torque is scary in India to have, but honestly, probably one of the best vehicles. When it actually launches, it'll be one of the best vehicles on the road that you can drive here. But on the other vehicle, they also had the M9, which was again a very interesting vehicle. I think MG did not have a vehicle in this category, which is the MPV category, and it looks very interesting. Has a 90 kilowatt hour battery, 430 kilometers of range, so a very standard sort of specs. But what was interesting that it was larger than the Kia Carnival, and Kia Carnival has done so well in the Indian market. So it's good to finally see that there is a competition. I think the only other competition was the Velfire from Toyota, I think. So very excited to sort of see. But what do you think about this particular vehicle, and why are OEMs competing in this
Actually,
category?
it is very funny to see because that category is exploding. So you mentioned, the Wellfire. There's also the Lexus LM350H. So that category is just exploding, and you see it more and more, and I'm surprised, but it's doing very well. I think people now realize, what, I don't need an SUV. I just need the comfort of the inside. And, actually the truth of the matter is that minivan format, it just makes it better. It may not be very sexy to look at, but when you're on the inside, it's a lot of comfort. So in fact, I just recently saw someone that bought the Lexus LM350. I sat in it, and you feel like you're sitting in first class seats in a flight. It's amazing. It's got this big screen that comes down. It's great, from that perspective. So yeah, so I think, again, MG probably, probably said, hey, let's get into that segment as well. So the M9, electric version of it. So they've done well with the E6 when they first launched 3 years ago. And now this is kind of like, the bigger Carnival category. And again, Carnival also had a refresh, now I think it's pushing 70, 80 lakhs, but I heard that entire allocation is sold out.
Wow. I mean, that's really good for Kia, honestly. So I think that's it from this episode of What's Happening. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Sounds good. Take care.